Hi.
Again. Hi there. So I'm Nikki from Johannesburg, South Africa.
And I'm Scotty the Florida man.
Which Florida?
Florida, USA.
Florida,
You know,
USA.
the really hot one.
Okay, this is a man to whom we were kind of flirting in 2020 on the interwebs just for funsies, and he was eating beef jerky, and I said, "Ew!" And what'd you say?
I said, "What's the matter? Are you vegan?"
And I said, "No. Have you ever tasted biltong? Biltong, not bull tongue. B-I-L-T-O-N-G. South African beef jerky." I apologize to all South Africans for saying that. It's just for frame of reference.
It's beef jerky that went to private school.
Beef jerky that went to private.
As you said it.
And I went online, found a South African store in the USA, and I sent him some as a surprise. And I joked to him that he was going to give up gators for crocodiles. And what did you turn around and say to your father?
Well, especially after I tasted the biltong and read the note, I had turned around and told my dad, "I'm gonna marry this girl."
May his soul rest in peace. And so now,
yes,
I've imported myself my own American with biltong. So if anyone wants an American husband, that's how it's done. I know the rand is low and the dollar's high, but we've got to do the things. Okay, baby. So what do you love about Johannesburg, South Africa? What have you experienced? You hopped on a plane, and when I chased you away, jokes, you said to me, "I'm not leaving without marrying you." Just a couple of things. What's up? What happened?
Well, shall I go from the beginning, like before I even got there, or should I just start with what I got there? Okay, well, I won't go through the crazy story of what happened before I even flew there. But as it turns out, when I get there, well, number one, people were just very warm and friendly and very, I don't know, they were very smiley, you know? Like, everybody was smiling. Like, I was very jet lagged, and some guy just looked at me and he was like, "Yo, American, I help you with your bags." I was just like, number one, how does this guy know I'm American? And then I realized, well, I still got my passport in my hand, number one. Number two, I looked very lost. Huh?
So that was the family there asking you to help with the groceries. Life's got to carry on, huh, babe?
Yes, it does.
All right, so yes, my husband is up in America supporting his family with some stuff, but his place of residence is here in sunny South Africa with me. He went from the Sunshine State to sunny South Africa, the Rainbow Nation. So you were speaking about your experiences here in South Africa. You had a great experience at the airport. Do you find that South Africans generally have animosity towards Americans?
No, not at all. I've never gotten that feeling whatsoever.
Okay.
If anything, everybody just looked kind of asked me how nice it is, or whatever. And then when I tell them about the reality of at least the city where I'm from, Tampa, Florida, they kind of look at me with shock. Like, wait, what?
Yes, I've been to the US twice now, and I've traveled more of the US than most Americans have. And the US is a very real nation with some very real problems.
There's not enough money to pay my expense. Basically, I fell behind.
Over the last year, I would say that I probably only earned like $5,000 to $6,000. I actually had a bank account, but I don't right now. There was so much things needed, it just got in the negatives.
Reasons that a lot of people in Holmes County are still unbanked or underbanked is the lack of jobs. They need a small dollar loan to make ends meet.
Basic needs being met. So these bottles are just a temporary fix to a long-term problem, but it provides immediate release to people who need gas and heat right now. There's a lot of people who need help paying their utilities. Housing condition is, for the most part, deplorable, but
we had water damage. Like they said, we had a pipe that was in the wall that was loose.
I actually have some nice people that is helping me and my family out right now. Truthfully, like, if that family would never took me in, I would probably just be looking for a homeless shelter.
So guys, we know that the American media does a great job of selling their country and packaging it like it's perfect. But the reality is that the amount of poverty that they have in America and the amount of egregious poverty they have in America, comparable to Limpopo or to the Eastern Cape kind of poverty, if you counted all of those people, that would amount to about 2/3 of our country's population.
This is Skid Row, the largest homeless camp and most dangerous neighborhood in America, with an estimated 10,000 plus homeless people living on its 25 blocks of drug-fueled and crime-ridden streets and tents. But why are these homeless people so violent? How did they end up here in the first place? And what could be done to get them off the street? This is
Skid Row is comparable to the poverty that you find in the Joburg CBD, and those people are living right next to Abo Beverly Hills. This is like Santon and Alex. My point? Not all that glitters is gold. However, the best of their TV shows, the best of their literature, the best of all of them have been embedded in South African culture since television came here in 1976, and before that. So we have a very positive view of America. People aren't aware of the extreme poverty. They aren't aware of the struggles that you guys have. So many times an American like you comes from a poor background is something that's a complete anomaly in the eyes of Southern Africans, right?
Could be.
Yes, because we think you guys all live in Hollywood. It's a misunderstanding and a misrepresentation, kind of like the poverty porn of Africa. All the media that's in there is the ass of Africa, never her face. So misrepresentations grow. Talking about misrepresentations, I am so proud of the African diaspora, no matter where you live, particularly America and Africa right now, particularly Southern Africa and South Africa. I am so proud of you because there is a conversation and a debate going on at the moment. And when I look at the children of the African soil, of all colors, Africa being the birthplace of the most diverse place in the entire world. You know, there are people that live here in every race. No matter what lies you have been told, people will say things like, white people don't live in Africa, that you don't see us flocking there. In South Africa, you guys have been flocking here for 400 years, ship after ship after ship from all over Europe for multiple reasons. Yes, colonization, as we all know, but immigration, mining reasons, farming reasons, refugees, you're nodding profusely, particularly from Holland, France, and Britain, but Scotland, Ireland, whose genetic code is found all over South Africa in all races, the Swiss, who interacted and contributed to Mshweshwe culture, the Scots who contributed to Tupana culture. So yeah, it's hectic essentially, right? But when I think about Africa and how the children of Africa, no matter where they were in the world, whether they moved there willingly or not, it is a race group, it is a group of people whom colonization has tried to steal education from. And the level of conversation you guys are having is proving to me that colonization lost this battle, because you guys, no matter where you are in the world, talking about the color debate right now, are speaking so beautifully. Even to those people I don't agree with, I just want to say, I understand where you're coming from. I understand that you're just trying to stand up for an oppressed people. I understand that your conscience will not allow you to be silent. I also understand that you may not understand how things operate around the world. We are here to try and build a bridge. Okay. So, as you may not know, my husband is a white American. Are you aware of that, baby?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yes.
So,
yes, I'm very aware of that.
Please don't come for him just because he's adding to this conversation. I can't now go and marry someone else just for one video. But it's my way of having an American conversation. Baby, we're talking about colored culture in South Africa. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Baby, do you think that when people mention the word colored, in your experience of the colored community, I've taken you to Coronationville, I've taken you to Westbury, I've taken you to Innerdale, one of my childhood homes. I grew up between Innerdale and Hillbrow because my mom was allowed to own property in Innerdale, being a colored. My dad was allowed to own property in the grey area. Hillbrow, a place where white people were allowed to own property, but were also, it's known as the grey area, because even though there was segregation or something similar to the Jim Crow laws, something inspired by the Jim Crow laws across the entire country, in the grey area, Hillbrow, it was called the grey area because what white people used to do, they always used to try and find sneaky ways of fighting the racist government. They would buy properties and then they'd rent those properties to people of color. They'd rent those properties to gay people. They'd rent those properties to interracial couples.
Wait for the end of apartheid and began to move into what was officially designated for whites only. Somehow the authorities turned a blind eye, and for the first time, we caught a glimpse of the future.
And it is in that context that I was born. I was born in this little bubble away from all the nasty racism outside. And so it was just something that I experienced as completely stupid. And then in Innerdale, I was surrounded by the Creole people of South Africa. The Creole people in South Africa are people we called kleurling. Kleurling, another word is bruino, and we translate that word in English into the word colored. Okay, a note for my kleurling mense here. Creole is not a word that we actually have here in South Africa because we were never a French colony. If we did, maybe the Americans wouldn't be arguing with us. But it's used to describe mixed race people like us. So I have divided mixed race people into 3 groups just to show uniqueness. Obviously, there's biracial people that have 2 parents of a different race. Then you've got multi-generational mixed people, maybe 1 mixed race person with a monoracial person. Then you have a Creole culture, people who have been mixed race for hundreds of years and have a very strong and distinct culture. Okay, I have compared it to 2 Creole races that exist in the Americas, but there are Creole races all over the globe. Got it? Dankie. Baby, in your experience of colored culture, have you experienced that when people talk about colored culture, are they being anti-black?
No, not at all. If anything, for the most part, they talk about a lot about like their black ancestors, you know, that are part of, you know, who made them who they are.
Is that what you've experienced?
Yes. Because they're like, they don't just talk about just the black ancestors, of course, you know, because
all right, pause for the cause. So there are 2 groups of black people that colored people in South Africa are likely to be descendant from. The first group is a group of people that are black South Africans, of course. The free black people who lived in their own kingdoms in what is now called the Republic of South Africa. These people stood their ground against the British and the Dutch, and often they won. A famous example is the Battle of Isandlwana. You can find out about that in a famous South African song called Impi, which means war, which will tell the story about how the Zulu people showed up to essentially what was a gunfight with knives and won. The
hopeless battalion, destined to die, broken by the benders of kings. Vainglorious general, Victorian pride, would cost him and 800 men their lives.
The British came with guns, the Zulu showed up with spears. They used and basically developed bulletproofing by using their cowherd shields to protect themselves from guns, and they won that battle, though they did obviously have their casualties, right? So black people in South Africa were free up until apartheid in the 1950s, or at least until the Union of South Africa before that, right? But that's one group that we are descendant from. Now, this has caused so much misunderstanding between African Americans and South Africans of all colors, they don't understand why mixed South Africans and especially black South Africans are so passionate about protecting the colored identity. This is because there is another group of black people that were brought to South Africa, right? And their descendants are mostly the colored people. Listen to what this beautiful black girl says about colored people and how their ancestry differs.
Calling a colored South African just black or just mixed race is such a deep oversimplification and erasure of the culture, history, language, and heritage that they have built for themselves as colored people out of so many different struggle scenarios such as South African slavery and apartheid within South Africa.
Did you hear that? She said they when she mentioned South African slavery. She said they, the colored people. Her ancestors, her black ancestors, didn't need to be brought to South Africa. They were already there. They weren't enslaved. I showed you an example of one of the battles. And there were many other things, many shades and colors. So no, the black race in South Africa was not enslaved. That's not to say that there aren't individuals that may have married into the black community or individuals that may have been classified as black that were actually colored, etc., etc. But as a group, black South Africans were free. As a group, colored South Africans, depending on which century we're talking about, are the descendants of the enslaved. Got it? And I know that gets complex when you're not South African. I know many of you cannot tell the difference between a mixed race South African who may be very dark and a monoracial black South African who may be very light. But this is why it's important to listen to South Africans when we tell our story. You're welcome to put your voice forward when you know what you're talking about. Sound fair? Let's look at the group of black people who are the ancestors of colored, not black South Africans. Ready? This may be disturbing to look at, so just take care of yourself. Here we go. Okay, so what we're looking at here, on the top left there, you can see an enactment of a ship with enslaved people coming from Madagascar, which, yes, is in Africa. On the right hand, you can see Indians from every caste in India. India has 55 different languages, multiple religions. They are coming to South Africa and other places in the West Indies. That's from after the British abolished slavery. They did a different kind of slavery called indentured labor. So just to give you the difference, on the left, that is chattel slavery. That's when you kidnap a person and enslave them. On the right, indentured labor, that's where you don't quite kidnap them, you entice them. I'm oversimplifying. At the bottom right, you are seeing the maps of where the slave trade started. We call that the European East Indian slave trade. Now, a couple of things to note. In South Africa, the slaveholders preferred children. So one of our first freedom fighters in South Africa, he came here at the age of 3, for example. And the reason for this is that they would live longer, you'd get more labor out of them, and they could survive the difficult ships for longer. On the bottom right there, you see a lady looking at a phone book. This is because whether you're an adult or a child, when you came to South Africa, you were stripped of everything. You were stripped of your name. You were stripped of your language. If you landed there in February, you'd be called Mr. February. If you landed there in May, you'd be called Mr. May, Mr. July, Mr. August, which is why I'm playing you a song in which it sounds like they're singing the months. No, they're singing the surnames of those people. This is an original slave song in the colored community in South Africa, most of whom are listed there in that phone book. January, February, March, there are thousands of them. Okay, there are lots of Decembers, lots of Januaries. Okay, that's a typical colored surname in South Africa. Now, these people have intermarried with others, white, black, whomever. So there are ancestors that were enslaved but aren't colored right now. Also, the Indian community may have preferred to marry within their religion, so they may not have intermarried with colored people. Okay, but basically, when you erase the colored identity, you are erasing our enslaved people. That is why our free black people are so protective of us. Okay, later on, we had a system called apartheid, which pretended to put us above them. They gave us a couple of more privileges above them. For example, they had outhouses. and we had toilets inside our houses. That's one example. They weren't treated as citizens of the country. We were treated as citizens, but we couldn't vote. Some of us got to vote for white people. These are small examples, okay? That doesn't mean that every single colored person agreed with this, all right? We can talk about the history of the two political parties in South Africa later on, which would be the colored people parties, and you will see that the party that fought against apartheid was actually bigger than the one that fought for it. And that one includes people who were tortured, murdered, arrested for decades, fighting apartheid, fighting the oppression of black people mostly, and the oppression of others. And some of these fighters include Indian and white people, and all of them would have things like being banned from the country, being put into solitary confinement, etc. So guys, when you guys argue with South Africans about our history, you are opening a deep wound for us. Some of you guys are arguing for the word colored because, you know, your civil rights movement started in 1964. Ours only started in 1994. I'm sitting here as someone who can still remember this. So please bear that in mind. We are asking you not to dehumanize us. The American story has been told. The Americans are like the center of the world. We don't get that much airtime. So it feels like bullying when you guys silence us with your American privilege. I'm not hating, I'm educating. Thank you so much for listening. Back to the interview with my husband.
They don't just talk about just the black ancestors, of course, you know, because without a mixture of black, white, or even Asian or whoever else their families come across, they wouldn't be who they were.
Right, and so is it important for them to acknowledge all cultures?
Yes.
Am I making the point that all colored people are perfect and are completely anti-racist? Be honest. Let's be honest. People want to know.
I don't like the black people.
Why not?
Just because. Black people. I don't like black people.
So colored people are not perfect, and that's not the point we're making. Colored people have mamparas around them. So an example of an American mampara would be someone like Candace Owens.
I'm gonna say is really, I don't really understand how far we're gonna take this inclusivity thing. I really don't get it. Look, I assume.
When you say that you believe yourself to be Caucasian, tell me why you believe that to be true.
Well, I know I'm a Caucasian because when I wake up in the morning, I just have such a great life. And that my hair is so perfect, my skin isn't ugly, and I'm not fat also, which is also a really African-American thing. I'm a Caucasian.
I'm sorry that I'll keep my mouth shut.
Conditioning in South Africa? Like, do y'all even know how to like wash your own hair? Cause y'all probably don't, cause I know how y'all dye y'all hair blonde. Y'all get that cow to piss on your head, so good condition.
Just want to bring into context the history of South Africa. We have been a racially divided country. We don't shy away from that.
Push from the truck, and on the very same spot, another confrontation is beginning. 3 boys died here, but more are ready to taunt the police.
We are going to continue with this criminal action. We are going to take action against you.
But in South Africa today, warnings don't stop young people bent on revolution. Just as a group of white Liberal MPs cannot restrain the police. Then the police open fire with shotguns.
But the time for racism and tribalism, we've seen that does not work.
Do you know this man? Anton Franz, huh? Fought alone for 6 hours against the apartheid regime. Special forces in the Bontas. He fought for our liberation. For our freedom at the age of 20 years old, his life was taken away.
Peace, family. So I didn't want to comment on this, but I noticed in the comment section a lot of people were saying that she was American. This woman is Congolese, my people. I love my Congolese family, and they don't represent anything she's talking about. But I'm going to be honest. She is not African American. And don't go around saying that, because y'all going to have people at our necks, and we ain't got nothing to do with this. We okay with the color terminology. Some of us may not be okay with it, but all in all, us as the colored peoples of America, we don't have no issue with the colored people of South Africa. We accepted being called that, even to the point that the NAACP stands for the National Association of Advancement of Colored People. So we are colored people as well. And if we still identify as such, you can identify as what you want to as well, my colored people.
The world is learning not to come for South African Kloras. Klora's the gay people's nickname for us. If I say Klora, Bruine Kleerling, the world is learning. It's a relief, but I hear you. We hear you. What people aren't aware of, I will share a video about this, is that in 1969, African Americans were given the vote as to what they preferred to be called. They voted. Colored came second. They preferred that.
At the height of the civil rights movement, Gallup did a poll of American descendants of enslaved Africans, wanting to know what racial label we preferred. At the top of the most preferred labels was Negro, followed by colored. The distant third but gaining steam was Black, and then Afro-American. Fast forward to 2019, and those poll results are very different. Black has now taken the lead, followed by African American. Negro and colored have been removed altogether, except colored people is now people of color. In fact, there's such an aversion to Negro and colored that many African Americans would have a problem referring to a Latin American Black person as Negro, or a South African person as colored, despite us having no issues whatsoever with United Negro College Fund. And we gladly accept advocacy and awards from the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
You can try to stop the hands of time, but you know it just can't be. And if they try to stop with seaweed, we'll call the NAACP.
I hear you. It's not just you guys, but you, as you acknowledged, you cannot speak for all African Americans, as I can't speak for all South Africans. You know, the size of South Africa is something like the space between New York and Louisiana. That is massive. It is hard to talk for that many people. Any thoughts, babe?
Oh, it's definitely hard to talk for that many people. Hell, me, I'm born and raised, grown up in America, and I can't talk for somebody 2 states over. I can barely talk for the guys that live down the street from me, you know?
Yeah, but what the Southerners do better is cook. Sorry, Yankees.
Yes.
I married a Southerner for a reason.
Yes, I will say.
I love me some jambalaya!
Sorry, New York. Y'all just don't do barbecue like we do.
Okra.
Y'all don't make cornbread like we do. Y'all don't make breakfast like we do.
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all even know what a grit is up there?
Still haven't bought me grits. Grits, guys. I know South Africa does food better than America, but grits is better than pap. Don't come for me, please. Don't come for me. Listen. Those Southerners, every race, you cook better, and I want you to know when the world put us under sanctions and no businesses around the world wanted to do business with us, the Colonel did the business. It's got the business. And so now you tell direction in South Africa by KFC. KFC.
The Colonel knows where he's wanted.
Tell us about your reaction to KFC when you came to South Africa.
It was better than American KFC. There was so much more on the menu. Like, not just like little snack sandwiches like what we got here. No, like full on like chicken burgers. Okay? And y'all got ice cream at your KFC. We ain't got no ice cream at our KFC.
Come to South Africa. Come and experience the KFC. It is lit. It is on fire. And you guys are welcome. Do not presume that's because South Africans are angry that we don't love you. We love you guys. You are loved and admired. We're just calling you out because that's how we love. We rough and tumble. Okay.
Baby, can I just also point out that Americans, guys, if y'all ever decide to go to South Africa, you have to go to McDonald's and try your first ever McFlurry, because we all know that the ice cream machines are broken in America.
Come when it's not load shedding!
Yeah, when it's not load shedding, that is.